Hey everyone, this portion of Sunday GUNDAY is brought to you by the National Association for Gun Rights. With the current administration in our country working overtime to strip us from our constitutional rights, I really hope you guys get on board with this one. The National Association for Gun Rights is backed by more than 4.5 million members and supporters, and they're the only grassroots-led, no-compromise gun rights organization fighting to restore your rights at all levels of government. In 2021, the NAGR led the fight to pass constitutional carry in 5 states: Utah, Montana, Tennessee, Iowa, and Texas. In DC, they are holding the line against red flag gun confiscation, stopping bans on rifles and handguns, and doubling down the pressure to the current administration of their nomination for what could possibly be the worst ATF director we will ever see. To get on board and support the fight, you can check them out over at nagr.org and also subscribe to their YouTube channel at the top link in the description down below. Huge thank you to NAGR for sponsoring this portion of Sunday GUNDAY. What's going on, everyone? My name is Talon Sai and you are watching Sunday GUNDAY. Today we are taking a look at 2 products that are for the same purpose, but they sort of tackle the way they do things a little bit differently. Both products are coming from Radical Firearms, so this should be a pretty cool head-to-head comparison of 2 different products doing essentially the same thing. On the left here we have a 3D printed titanium silencer known as the Radical Firearms Sinter. And over in my right hand here, we have an integrally suppressed AR-15, and this one is known as the RF-15. So let's put these things head to head and see which one I prefer. Now, starting with the Sinter, this is a titanium suppressor utilizing the most cutting-edge technologies in 3D additive manufacturing. I'm not quite up to speed enough to let you guys know how this actually works, but essentially these things are 3D printed inside of a medium. This is one of Radical's lightest and most durable suppressors on the market, and it can handle everything from 22 WMR all the way up to 300 Win Mag. They do claim that all of the calibers would be hearing safe, but I'll sort of be the judge of that. I really have to protect my hearing with all of the shooting that I've been doing. The reason these things are 3D printed is because it allows Radical to achieve things that are not available through traditional manufacturing methods. This will handle up to a 7.62 caliber. It's about 8 inches overall and 1.75 inches in diameter. It weighs just 16 ounces thanks to that titanium 64, and they advertise a decibel rating of 136.7 with a 12.5-inch barrel while shooting 308, which sounds kind of insane. It has a high temp Cerakote exterior coating available in black or desert tan. They are utilizing tapers on the muzzle device, which is included with the can, so that should prevent any carbon lock that may happen. And then the exterior also has a really cool honeycomb pattern, which supposedly increases the surface area, allowing for better heat distribution. And the Sinter is full auto rated. Now I am going to be testing out the Sinter on this RF-15, just a pretty standard AR across the board, and it should be a pretty cool comparison against the integrally suppressed version of this. And you can pick up this gun as a full complete build, or you could buy just the upper if you already have a lower that you want to pair this thing with. So now for the integrally suppressed RF-15. This thing is chambered in 5.56. It has an overall barrel length of 16.5 inches. They're using nickel-plated baffles on the internal suppressor, and it has rifling out to about 10.5 inches. The sleeve of the actual suppressor on here is a grade 5 titanium tube, also with a high temperature Cerakote on the outside. And then everything else with the upper all the way down to the lower, trigger controls, and pretty much everything else is what you would expect coming from Radical. Mil-spec standard components all coming in at a pretty reasonable price. Real quick before we continue, I have to make a distinction between the 2 of these platforms right here. The one that I'm shooting the RF-15 with the Sinter on here is technically an SBR. I'm not used to shooting SBRs because most of my rifles that have a 10.5-inch barrels are not rifles, they're pistols, so it has a pistol brace on it. This is a 2-stamp gun with the can and the actual buttstock on there, so this is an SBR. This, however, is a 10.5-inch, but it has a 16.5-inch overall barrel length because the barrel is the suppressor as well. So this is an integrally suppressed rifle, and this is a suppressed SBR. I didn't even really think about it while filming, but I just wanted to make that difference known. That way you guys know. So let's get back to it. Now before we get into testing both of these, I do want to test the pistol without any can on there just to get sort of a baseline, an understanding of how the platform feels, how loud it is. And then I will throw the titanium sinter on there, move over to the integrally suppressed platform, and by the end of this video I should be able to decide which one I prefer more. So right from the start, this thing shoots just as basically every other AR pistol does. Feels pretty good. I am no stranger to Radical's AR platforms. Now let's throw the sinter on there. Make sure that sucker is tight. Should lock up pretty nicely with those tapers on the muzzle device. And now let's test out this sinter. I'm gonna go one ear without ear pro, just for the start. That way I can get a good sense of the tone of the can. Hopefully it's hearing safe. It's just shooting to the dirt for most of this. Yeah, that does a really good job. I'm not recommending shooting without ears in, but I think my ears will be all right. There is a little bit of port pop, which is kind of expected. And since I'm gonna be shooting this a lot today, I'm going to continue the testing with these in. That can is cooking. Ejection pattern looks pretty good with this can on here. I have a feeling we're going to be shooting a lot of legacy ammo today. Alright guys, now we're moving on to the integrally suppressed RF-15. I should also mention, in case there are some questions out there, both of the optics that I'm using today are from NorthTac. These are pretty budget options, just simple red dots, both in different form factors, and I've had them for a while but never put them to the test, so I figured this would be a pretty good time to bring them out and test them. Now I'm going to start this one with no ears in at all. I'm thinking this is going to be quieter, and I hope it is. Let's see how it does. getting hot. Gonna pop an ear off for this. That takes a good bit of the bite off. I think that steel is louder than the gun. Alright guys, now that we've got roughly 250 rounds through the Sinter and the integrally suppressed SBR, let's talk about pros and cons of each, and then I will just pick my preferred winner. So starting with the Sinter, this thing is super familiar to me. It's a pretty standard silencer, but they do have a lot of cool technology in here because they 3D print these. That additive manufacturing process allows Radical to do things that you can't do with standard old machining practices. It seems like that honeycomb pattern on there does allow heat to dissipate pretty quickly. The gun has only been sitting back there for about 5 minutes and I can touch this thing without burning myself. I would say that this thing is pretty competitive in the silencer market overall. This is coming in at a price of, I believe, $8.99 right now. With the muzzle device, you can put it on whatever platform you want and it just sort of feels right at home. Now they do say that the rating on these is hearing safe, but like I mentioned, I'm pretty particular about my hearing, so after just that first mag, with an ear out, both ears out, I of course decided to put them back in. It definitely takes the bite off of 5.56, however, if you're shooting a lot, I would definitely recommend still wearing Ear Pro. Now with a platform like this and throwing a can on there, you may want to adjust the gas settings because this thing was ejecting pretty good, but when compared to the other one, that was ejecting much nicer. So this thing is relatively light. I think it is priced accordingly. This on an SBR platform like this does make it a little bit longer than the other. There was not a whole lot of blowback. There was a little bit of port pop, but I was shooting this thing fine round after round. I didn't feel it in my eyeballs and in my nose, so yeah, I would give this thing a thumbs up for sure. Now moving on to the integrally suppressed SBR. One of the main cons that I'm noticing right now is that this thing gets super hot. With a silencer like the Sinter out on the end of the gun, it's not going to be trapping the heat inside the barrel as much. Of course, the gas expands and it's going to heat up the can a lot more. Because this can comes all the way down, basically all the way to the back of the gun here, I noticed that this handguard got hot pretty dang quickly. Like I can't even hold this out here right now. We did just put like 120 rounds down pretty quickly, but yeah, I would not want to be grabbing that thing without gloves. So we'll mark down the heat as one con. Another con to a setup like this would be that you can't really take it off. If you don't want to shoot suppressed, you're going to have to change out the entire upper, but you should know what you're getting into when buying something like this. Now the price of just the upper is coming in a little bit more expensive than the Sinter itself. The Sinter, I believe, $8.99, and these, I believe, are about $1,200. You could also get this entire SBR platform integrally suppressed, just as you see it right here, for I believe $13.49. So this is really going to be a dedicated setup. If you only want one can to put on a bunch of different guns, then Sinter is obviously going to be a better option for you. However, if you're like me, when I get a can, I typically leave it on the platform that I bought it for. So that Sinter right there will probably stay on that RF15 SBR. So when it comes to something like this is really fitting for how I like to set up guns and how I like to shoot suppressed. For the pros of this thing, if you are opting for just the upper, you're only paying a few $100s more than the actual can, so you're getting a lot for your money here. And then when it comes to the actual suppression, this thing was much quieter than the Sinter. as I kind of expected. I shot all of those mags without ears in. No ringing, there wasn't a whole lot of port pop, and it sounded really good. As far as the tone goes, it's not gonna come across in video, but I do think I prefer the actual tone of the Sinter just because that's what I'm sort of used to. This doesn't really sound like a silencer. If you shoot suppressed a lot, you know what I mean. They sort of have like a twang to them depending on the material and how the baffles are laid out and everything. So this doesn't really sound like a traditional silencer, but it was very quiet and I could shoot this thing all day without having ears in, and I would not be worried about losing any of it. And then the final thing, there was quite a lot more blowback on this one compared to the Sinter. I believe if I were to continue running this gun, I would want to swap out the charging handle for something that will sort of keep the gases in there. As an example, like the Geisley Super Duty charging handle, this is all just sort of like mil-spec stuff. Nothing super fancy going on here. The triggers, the grip and everything. The grip actually feels really nice, but everything is about as standard as it gets. The red dots have been good so far. Again, not a whole lot of testing through them, but they've been good. And now it comes down to which of these would I pick, the Sinter or the integrally suppressed SBR. I laid out the pros and cons so you guys could probably decide which one you would pick. Let me know which one you would choose in the comments down below. And when it comes to me, for my personal preference, the Sinter is great, feels right at home. I like it, it's light, it looks good, and it performed pretty well. However, this platform right here is just super unique. It was much, much quieter than the Sinter, and even though this thing got hot and it was sort of throwing gases back at me a little bit more than the Sinter, I think if I had to choose between these two, I would opt for this platform right here. So let me know which you guys would prefer, just a regular old silencer or something that is integrally suppressed like this. Let me know in the comments down below. If you guys have any questions on both of these, the can or this platform, or these SBRs and silencers, all this fun double stamp gun stuff that we got going on, let me know in the comments down below. If you're new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. That's gonna be all for today. So as always, thank you guys for watching. I will talk to you in the next one.